Despite living in Washington State for almost 2 years now, I still hadn't gone to Canada because I did not have a passport yet. But luckily, I got a passport to go to Europe, so now I could finally go to Canada, which I was super excited about. And this is just a 2 day trip that we did to Vancouver, British Columbia. But because it's another country, I decided to make a video on it. I'm honestly just making these videos for fun and because I love video editing, because I know I've only gained 2 subscribers during this whole like traveling vlog era. On July 15th, we began our drive from the Seattle area to Vancouver, Canada. I did all the driving. Here's me right before crossing the country border. I almost said state border. And we got gas because gas is more expensive in Canada, like right before the border. And here's us waiting at the Canadian border. I was super, super excited. I've wanted to go to Canada for so long, and it just hasn't worked out yet because I didn't have a passport, and it's like $200 to get a passport, so that was always intimidating for me. But yeah, I was super excited to finally be in Canada. We're in Canada. Speed bump. Oh my god. Speed bumps. Canada, British Columbia. Yay. Once we were in Canada, I no longer had data, so this is what my maps looked like. But my boyfriend luckily had data as a part of his plan. After we worked through this scary situation where his data like completely shut off, like the night before our trip, of course. But luckily in the morning we just stopped at Verizon and someone could fix that, and we found out that he had Canada as part of his plan. But anyway, everything was in kilometers instead of miles, which I weirdly already understand because my GPS for some reason has always been in kilometers and I just never changed it. So now I understand kilometers and what that means. So we just changed the car dashboard to be in kilometers per hour instead of miles per hour. But ironically, my partner's phone was the one with data, so while we were in Canada, I was looking at miles in a place based on kilometers. And then back in America, I went back to being a place based on miles, where my phone is in kilometers. We went to a vegan restaurant my partner had been to before called Chickpea, which I was really down with because I really love chickpeas. And I had the best burger and the best, oh my god, these were chickpea fries and they were phenomenal. This food was 10 out of 10. My card declined though because I was in Canada, which is apparently suspicious activity, and I was trying to get used to Canadian dollars, which was tripping me out because the dollar sign looks really similar to the American dollar sign. Okay, so apparently I am delusional and the American dollar sign also has only one line instead of two. So I don't know if the Mandela effect happened or what, but I'm apparently crazy and both dollar signs of Canada and America are the same. Okay, bye. Here's us, and then we made the mistake of trying to drive onto Granville Island when there is like literally no parking and like traffic. So we just parked in a residential area off the island and then just walked back onto the island, which walking is fine. People need to get out of the headspace that we need to drive directly places and make places that should be walkable, like really car centric and more dangerous. But anyway, the skyline was really cool. A lot of the tall buildings in Vancouver seem to be apartments, which I weirdly like prefer the look of business skyscrapers, but that's just me being a skyscraper enthusiast. We saw some Canadian geese and then we made it to Granville Island, which has a market pretty similar to Pike Place Market, which is like a food market. The dead animals in there are very disturbing, but there's also produce. And then there's a bunch of little shops all around to where I found this Get TikTok Famous Fast book. I think I would know how to go viral on TikTok. I found this strange bug in one of the shopping areas. We tried to walk to a beach, but the walking directions on my partner's phone literally ended in a dead end in a parking lot, so that was a thing. And then we walked on this pedestrian bridge trying to get back. I woke up in a new Bugatti was written on it, and then I got this cool shot. Ignore the dirty windshields. This is just a hill I was filming because I hate steep hills and driving so much. You can imagine I had a fun time in San Francisco. And then Seattle is hilly too. I don't like some places in Seattle. This British style telephone booth reminded me of the UK, and then we went to this vegan like cafe slash grocery store, and then we went to this weird like grocery store that was mostly vegan but still had like some animal products. I have no idea why. And then I just took this picture because I was surprised to see that Silk has cheese apparently in Canada. And then we got these vegan ice cream sandwiches that were super bomb. And I love how a lot of the food, or all of it, has French as the second language on it. It reminded me of Paris. And apparently, Canada has these exit signs that I saw all over Europe. Apparently, America hates this sign because it's in Canada. Then we made our way to a free orchestra in this park, which apparently everyone and their mother was going to because most of the residential area parking near the park was like full. But we luckily found a spot. And then we walked over to the park. I didn't know the orchestra was movie music, otherwise, I would have been more excited because it was actually really amazing. 10 million people were there, so we just sat on the blanket we brought somewhere random, and I went over sometimes to listen. And then because we needed to get to our Airbnb in time, we left like before it ended. Then we drove to our Airbnb, which we needed to get an Airbnb because all of the hotels available were like really expensive. I'm talking like $400 a night expensive. But luckily, we found an Airbnb in Surrey, Canada, which is like a 30-minute drive or so away from Vancouver. That was like $82, so that was nice. I used the Airbnb Wi-Fi to just Google random facts and stuff about Canada. Also, fun fact, it's not just the hotels. Vancouver apparently ranks third most expensive city in North America, so that's just great. I love housing crises. The next morning, we showered and got ready and left our Airbnb. Then we drove to Vancouver and we went to this vegan restaurant called Meat, Meet. And oh yeah, one thing I found interesting is that Canada calls restrooms and bathrooms washrooms. We each had some of these two dishes. We got the Philly cheesesteak poutine and this noodle like Thai pad Thai type dish, and both were phenomenal. Really good restaurant. I wish I could try everything on the menu. We couldn't find any free street parking in the area because we were downtown at this point. But luckily, we did find cheap enough like street parking. And I thought this tree was really interesting because someone wrote "plant another" on it. And then we happened to walk past the Vancouver Film School, which just makes me sad because I wish I could have gone to film school. We walked through the tall downtown buildings of Vancouver. I liked these buildings more than the look of apartments that have like balconies. That's just me. We were, of course, walking to the LVMH stores because we were going to do some protesting.
Louis Vuitton Moet Hennessy, known as LVMH, the second largest conglomerate in the world.
It was just us two, but you don't really need a gigantic group of people in order to be loud and be a problem. And I didn't know about any Vancouver activists who were doing LVMH or for demos, so.
Louis Vuitton is polluting the land, polluting the water, profiting off of the animal slaughter. Louis Vuitton has blood on their hands. So much blood on their hands. LVMH has blood on their hands. LVMH has blood on their hands. Bernard Arnault has blood on his hands. So much blood on his hands. Arnault, what do you say?
How many animals died today?
50 dead animals.
For one fur coat.
50 screaming animals.
Fur trade, that's right.
Fur trade.
trade.
Fur trade.
That trade.
Fur trade.
That trade.
We hit 3 different LVMH stores, and the full video should be up on my Instagram. Then we walked back through downtown Vancouver, back to our car. We went to a vegan grocery store that had some clothing items you could also buy and stickers. And I found that one candy I got in Brighton, so I had to get it again. I also got gum and then this tofu sticker and then this pin. Canada was very similar to America besides several things, including this blinking green light, which basically just means you can go, but like watch out for pedestrians. I thought it was kind of interesting. If you've seen my Stockholm video, you know that we did not find the vegan options we were looking for at the IKEA there. But luckily there was a gigantic IKEA in Richmond, British Columbia, so we just went there and I finally got a real IKEA experience. And we also found the vegan hot dog and a like strawberry sorbet. It was pretty good, and the hot dog was $1 Canadian, so less than a US dollar. Then we were done with our Vancouver trip and we drove to the US border. The wait time to get back into America was much longer than it was to get into Canada, but honestly it's not that insanely long. And eventually we talked to the person and had our passports looked at, and we were back in America in Washington. And then we just drove, or I was driving, but I drove oh, and also through traffic, yay, drove back home for the day. So that was Canada and British Columbia and Vancouver.